Okay, in this tutorial we are going to be learning how to recreate Finnebassen If Your Girl Only Knew. This is my recreation, let's hear it now. Okay, so yeah, basically it's something that I put together and I just wanted to show you guys how to do it. It was an interesting project. So basically the two things to realise about this is that I used the original a cappella that Finnebassen must have used, which was a track by this person, Aaliyah, If Your Girl Only Knew. I just stumbled across it and I thought, okay, great. I didn't realise it was an a cappella, so I guess all of these new disco tracks there's not a lot of original out there, it would seem. So I got that. And the other thing that is important to realise, and that I realised about this track, it's a great track, by the way, it's a fantastic track, but the thing about it is it uses an 808 drum kit extensively in it. I believe it's just a normal 808 kit, so I'm just using the one inside Ableton. But if you can get any 808 sample kit, then that should suffice if it's based on the original. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through it layer by layer, and I'm going to start exactly where I started off when I started recreating this last night when I wasn't able to sleep. So let's just basically start from the bottom. I'm going to peel all the layers back, and let's just have a quick listen to the original, which is where I started last night. So. Okay, so the very first thing I did was decided that, oh, by the way, I've mapped the solo key on the original reference track to number 1, so I can flick between my loops I've made and the original, so like that. Yeah, so I'm just taking it back in and out. So we go back, we're going to take off all the layers off my track and just listen to, we're going to not do the vocal. The vocal actually came in last, so I'll leave the vocal. First thing I'm going to start with is the kick. So I just used, I've got the Vengeance kicks all in a drum kit. Yeah. I basically just went through and I had listened to the original and I just sort of thought about what the kick was like, and it's quite a thuddy kick. So I basically just went and found one. Okay, and if you've watched any of my other tutorials, like creating drums, or the other really popular one I've done about the new disco bass line, then you'll see that basically like a lot of this is really trying to keep it simple, and you'll notice here I haven't got any processing, haven't got any rubbish on top, because the most important thing to get to things sounding right is to firstly adjust the volume and then adjust the pan. You can sit there for ages with EQ and stuff, but if the sample isn't right, then no amount of tweaking afterwards is going to make it work, and you will just waste your time. So get the sample right, which is exactly why I have got all the best samples from the Vengeance kit, and you don't need anything more than that, just the Vengeance kit will do, and I've stuck them all in my drum rack and I've been using that for the last 2-3 years, and it hasn't changed, and it does me fine. I basically get any type of kick I want. So anybody says, oh, you need to have this kick, you need to treat it in a certain way, you need to do loads of compression, it's basically just people going on about stuff for the sake of going on about it. I don't know, people love doing that, but the main thing that you can remember is just get all, sit there one day, get all the decent sounding kicks, stick them in a drum kit and just use them going forward. And then the main thing is the volume and the panning. Once you get that right, you'll be set. So we've got a kick now, sounds pretty good. Next thing I did was the most prominent, I'd always address the most prominent thing first when trying to recreate anything. So we're going to listen to the original. Now the two most prominent things that I'm sure if you know this track you'll agree with me are the bass line and that hi-hat. That hi-hat is that's just the one. You hear that coming in back when I used to rave it up 4 years ago, I would hear that hi-hat coming in, and yeah, you'd know that track was coming on. So so we're gonna do, so this, the next thing I did was the hi-hat basically. So basically I brought this next one in. I'll just show you what I did with this. I know it's the pattern is halfway between the kick and the clap, and then there's a double at the end. So and what I've done is I've panned over to the right. And by the way, this is just the standard 808 classic kit. So yeah, so but if you actually listen into this tutorial right at the end, I will actually give you download instructions for this. So basically, so this is just a standard 808 kit that ships with Ableton. It's the closed hi-hat there, and I've just pitched over to the right, and I've just put a tiny bit of reverb on it. So without the reverb, just a tiny little tail on there. Okay, so that's the hat, and that, the hat and the kick, the original. Now, the next thing is not so obvious, but it's pretty important, and I just know this from having made new disco for quite a while now. Having been on my 8th production, you start to just pick up things, and you're like, yeah, you know, that goes there, don't need anyone to tell me that. And basically, you need some shakers. And what they are, I've noticed, I was listening to some track the other day that somebody posted online, and I realised that one thing was that it has just to have this little shaker rhythm that's going along with the main hat, and to sort of pan it the other way, and to just put some little triple hits on, and just to give it a swing. So I've given it the MPC 16 double swing, and so this basically gives us a very sort of laid back, easy going, skippy beat in the background. So you can hear that over the left hand side. Now that's not exactly like the original, but it basically gave the same vibe. I think in the original they've just done one every measure or something, but I've just done a little. I just jazzed it up a bit, you know, just because I did. You know, I'm looking to sort of get the feeling at this point. I guess I was doing a recreation. I just, you know, yeah, I wanted to just do it. It sounded good, so I went on with it. So. Okay, and then the next thing, and again, that shaker that's in there was from, I'll give you this sample obviously, was just, I got it from I've got another drum rack which is closed hi-hats, which is the same as my kicks. I just sat there one day and I got all of my Vengeance kicks out and just put them, all of my Vengeance closed hi-hats, and I just put them in one big mofo drum kit. You see, everything's in there, and that means that when I sit down to produce, I haven't got to start digging around in samples, because that's just a waste of time. So there we go. See, not that one, not that one, definitely not that one. Oops, that one. Yeah, just a little tick. And the main thing is this groove. If I take that groove off, it just doesn't work. So that's the MPC 16 double down 50 groove. I usually use the MPC 16 groove templates recently. Next one, really important, is the clap. Okay, now there's always two parts to these claps when you're making these new disco style tracks. There's the snare at the bottom and there's the clap at the top. So let's just isolate this clap and have a look and start to peel it back. So the snare, again, that snare, that is from the 808. That's what it's used for the bottom. Okay, so I've got on the group there, I've got a reverb. I'm just going to go in, just drill into that snare. Whoops. Yeah, if I listen to the original. Whoops. Just take that off, so I just want to solo the original. I think actually it's probably worth mentioning that I wasn't always working on this particular bit of the track. There was a certain time that I was just working on, I think, just this drum loop. yeah, so when I started working on it, I was just working on the drum loop, and then I brought in later section. So it just helps you to hear what's going on there. So we go. And then on top of that, I've got a clap. That's just a generic clap that I've pulled out of another drum kit I've got called Claps. Look, let me show you, right? See in here, Deepscale, tools, instruments. Look at that, in there, all my drums. Claps, closed hats, congas, drums, kicks, open hi-hats, perks, snares, toms, everything, just all there ready to go. So I'm not, when I want to get down and get stuff down and get working and be productive, which is what I should be because I'm a producer, and producers are productive, or should be if you actually want to have that title, then I need to just sit down and get stuff out. So I sat down one day, it didn't take me long, it took me an hour or two, and I just sat down and got all my samples together. So again, I'm making use of that in here, and I won't be able to give you the full kit, but I will flatten this project, and I'll give you the notes and everything and the patches for thing, but I can't obviously distribute the entire sample library. I could potentially get into trouble for that, so I'll just have to flatten it for you. But I will give you all the MIDI, and I'll give you the patch for silence because I own the intellectual property around that because I made it from the ground up. But we'll come to that later. So here's the clap. So and then just some reverb on top. Yeah. Now, it's not sounding like exactly the same, but I'm going for the vibe here, which is why I didn't labour too much about that shaker thing that I did. I was getting the right vibe, because ultimately when you put it all together and you put the bass line on top and then you drop the vocal in, it sounds pretty similar. And I'm not doing it, I didn't do this to actually just recreate Finnebassen. I did this to learn, and I was using this to actually focus my learning efforts, because if I learn how to make this track and get it sounding 80-90% like it, I can go off and make another track. And that's basically the way to learn music. If you ask any any really good musician, they will always say they study great music in order to go off and make great music. I think the guy from the Rolling Stones actually, I got that when I watched the documentary, and he said that it's something you have to do. So right, now let's listen to the original again, see where else we're going to go with this. Now, I want to bring back in the original because there is actually an extra element on top of here. Oops, I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to take that out, pop that over there, and take these two and just drag them in there. Oh, I'm going to show you actually. Let me just... Let me just... So I hunted it on another bit of the track. Whoops. Oh. So yeah, the next most obvious thing we can hear is this little clicky, sounds like a little woody sort of sound going on. You can hear it just on the left there. Hear it? Yeah, it's called a rim shot. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, it's just one of those things that you pick up. So that was the next thing that I worked on. So again, rim shot comes from the 808. Now, the critical thing here was that there was a simple delay of 2 on it. I don't know what that means, it's like a 2. I don't really know what these numbers actually mean, I just know how to use them. So, when I listen to it and I listen to the original, you can just hear, just with practice when you start doing delays, you know what the sound is, you start to just learn what the sound is and then what the delay is, and I knew it was a 2 delay. And then and I also heard that there was a bit of reverb on there. The next thing is that there's this like clap that comes every sort of second measure, which just adds a bit of space, and it's got a heavy reverb on it. So did you hear it? Right at the end of that. Yeah, so go back to mine, and here it is, the reverb clap. So I'll just solo that for you. Yeah, just adds a nice bit of space, adds a bit of variation, you know. If we, you know, quite often, it's been good actually doing this because, you know, even for myself, I've sort of learned, you know, yeah, you've got to create quite a few layers, and yeah, have stuff that's higher volume and lower volume, and space it out and get it all gelling nice. Just add that variation. I guess that's the difference between an amateur track and a pro track, is that variation, and you get the variation by going through a workflow. That's what we're doing here, following a workflow to get that variation. It's not magic, it's just a process. So yeah, so let's just the original. It's starting to get that ambience. I'm going to say it's starting to get that vibe. It's starting to get that overall sound. And one of the things I just want to draw your attention to, you might have realised, is I haven't really done anything complicated. I haven't done any EQing. I haven't put any special effects. I haven't done any mastering. I haven't done any mixing. All those lovely things everybody talks about all the time online that say, you know, oh, you've got to do this to get it sounding right. Well, I think we're pretty close, and really all I've done is put some samples together, adjust their volumes, and do some very basic reverb settings. But I've got the right samples, I've put the right delays on. So, you know, as with everything in music production, it's really not what you're using. I'm using Ableton, but it doesn't matter. It's the fact that, you know, I knew that it's an 808 kit. Okay, I've, you know, got a fair bit of experience, so I've dug through enough samples that I recognise the kit. But you know, the point is, this was all like free stuff. I haven't done anything special, and I'm already getting a sound of you know, one of the great sort of new disco tracks. So the next thing is this end rim shot, and I can't even remember what this was, but let's have a quick listen. Ah yeah, okay, so you can hear in the original, just go to the end on that. I'll go to one bar and just listen to the end of that. Yes, so it's just the that bit. Now there is an extra high rim shot, and I haven't put that in just because I didn't find it in the 808 library, and I just couldn't be bothered because I felt like I was close enough. But if you really wanted to, you could do it. Mine. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so the next bit, the exciting bit, is the bass line. Okay, so basically, let's just have a listen to the original bass line. So what I did was basically, I just got to the first bit and I was like, right, I just work out the first few notes and basically just work out what key the track is in. So the thing that I did was reused one of my presets from one of my other tracks. So it was a preset that I made, it was a synth patch that I made just to get started. So I went into and if you've watched any of my other tutorials, you've seen me work this way. I went in here and I think I went to one of my other tracks, which was I don't know, one of these ones, I can't remember, one of the ones with the bass line in, so I keep the bass line there. So that was my first release with KZ Records. So I dragged that in, and then I can start playing around with it on the keyboard. So if we just go to my track, and I just turn that on, and so I just listen to the original, and I try and work out what the first note is. Do it an octave higher sometimes, so it's easier to hear. So I just start playing around with keys, just find the key that it is. So it's like let me just actually open up Silent for you, so you can see the keys that I'm pressing. It's not very obvious, is it? I wonder if I opened up. You can see if I opened up the MIDI, the VMPK keyboard. Oh no, that plays a sound in it, but okay. Well, hopefully you can see. You'll just need to see it go grey at the bottom there, and basically the key is that one, that black one there. Oh, that one there, and that's a B flat, okay, because it's F, G, A, B, flatten it. So that's the root note. And what it does is it goes down. It's really interesting actually. The start of it is in a minor scale, so the very first key that goes down from that in the minor scale is the one next to it, which is the A flat. So it goes B flat, A flat. So it hovers between those two. So I just bring that up so you can see that. So I just played it so I could get the feeling right. Yeah, so that's that. And so I recorded that in, quantized it, shifted the notes around, then I listen to the original. Yeah, pretty close. And then after I did this, I did some playing around with the bass line. It's actually, the preset is amazingly simple. Like, it's so simple it hurts, but it just takes a long time to realise these things sometimes. So, but I'll share this with you. So remember to wait out for instructions at the end of this video, and I'll give you this project with all the settings and all the presets in. So then the second bit is really interesting because usually it's all in a minor scale. Now, if this was a minor scale, so listen to the second bit that I've done. So let's listen to the original. Actually, what I need to do is I need to get this bit, because this is actually, sorry, I need to get our main line in. Yeah, so that's the video's copy. I could have gone for a bass line section from early in the track, but I wanted to get the main riff of it in. So what's really interesting is that, just dipping into a bit of music theory here, is if it starts off in like a minor scale, and I know that because it starts on the first degree of the scale and then it goes down to the seventh. So now I know you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, isn't the seventh up there? Well, it is, but it's transposed down an octave, so it's just one of those weird things about music. So we still call it the seventh, which is there. And quite often, a lot of these new disco tracks are using the sixth, seventh, and the first degree of the scale. A lot of the chord sequences are the sixth, seventh, and the first. And a lot of the bass lines are just using this hover. It's a little trick, and it just hovers between those. So it starts there. So if it was a minor scale, all the keys would be like this. And by the way, I can remember bits of this, but I've got this written down, the actual intervals in front of me. So it goes like this. It goes tone, tone, and then semitone, and then tone, and then another tone, and then a semitone, and then another tone. But like you see here, these don't fit in with that scale. So I was like really perplexed when I sat down and tried to do it in a minor scale, and I couldn't. I tried to play it in a minor scale and I couldn't. I was like, what's going on here? And what it actually seems is that, so tone, tone, semitone, tone. So it's actually fallen outside, and I think what it's done is it's actually gone into a major scale, because if I was to plot the major scale intervals here, I go, there's the root note, there's a semitone, then there's tone, tone, tone. So it doesn't even do it in a major scale, which is really odd. So if anybody actually, I'm probably going to get some help with this and find out, what's going on here musically. But it's actually gone down to, it might be a Dorian, it might be a different scale, like it's gone into a Dorian mode or something. But it's definitely, but it works, and that's the interesting thing about it. This is why it's great to pick apart tracks, because you start to learn by actually analysing it musically. It's not in a minor scale, it's not in a major scale, it's shifted to a different scale. It might be just that it's shifted the root note, I'm not quite sure. It's put it into, it's actually it's actually gone into a different, so it's the same scale but different tonic. But I'm going to just get some help with this from my music teacher to find out what's going on here, because it is really interesting. But nonetheless, what I can say for sure is that when we find our new root note down here, is that we're using a minor chord, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then what we're using is this sustain chord, which I've talked about in other tutorials. So this is using this is dropping down to the 7th, and then this one is using a minor chord, an implied minor chord there, because that's a 1, 2, 3 up, and then it's using if it was a full minor chord, it would be there, but it's not. It's one down from that, which is a sustain chord. So it's really interesting bass line actually. It's definitely food for thought for me going forward, and so. Yeah, and basically all I've done at the end here is to actually is I've got a little scoop up on the automation, which automates that filter. Okay, and then finally we've got the chord in here, and again the chord was not something I was expecting. It wasn't a minor, it was a sustain chord, again, just using 2 notes, but it's starting on the E and the A, which I guess is interesting, because that's, it's there, the chord is there, and where's the other one? Where's the other one? There, if I just go up one on that one. It's a sustain chord. I guess the sustain chord actually is in line with the second part, the bass line. So it's making heavy use of that sustain chord. And what happens is the sustain chord actually drops down by 2. So going 1, 2 down there, that's a D. Yeah, so basically, we just have a quick listen to this. So we have to listen to the original. Yes, you can hear it goes, so that's or not the chord, the pad rather. So here. So, I'm just putting it all together. So yeah, really interesting use of a sus chord there, which is really nice actually. So basically that's it. So that's the main riff of the track, and then just to put the vocal in on top. Basically we've got the original sample, which I just warped it up, so it's like Finnebassen's, and then it's got this this little guy shouting at the end, which I took from the start of the acapella. Yeah. So putting it all together. And there we go. There we have it. That's Finnebassen. If your girl only knew, it's a brilliant track. So I will provide this this Ableton project template to you, and obviously it will come with the silent preset that I've used for the bassline. Just actually show you the bassline before we go. The bassline's really simple. It's just two oscillators which are slightly detuned from each other. Really simple stuff with a small cutoff on. So I can provide you with that, and then also the patch for the pad as well. It was like super simple. It was just a couple of detuned saws together. The main thing was getting all the notes right. So I'll provide this all to you. If you want to get this, then what you need to do is to if you're not already following me, if you're not already doing this, then follow me on SoundCloud, and also follow me on Facebook. And once you've followed me on both places, so you can just go to Facebook and type in Deepscale. Once you followed me on Facebook and you followed me on SoundCloud, then send me a message through one of them, and just let me know your name so I can see if you followed me on both. And then once you followed me on both, I will zip up the project and I'll send it to you. And hopefully that will help you with your learning. Okay, well that's all for today, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and you've learned something from it. Thank you very much.